All right, and we are live with SampleServe Masterclass Wednesdays. How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I am Joshua Paul, product manager at SampleServe, and I have with us Russell Schindler, the CEO and founder of SampleServe. He's been in the environmental game for over 35 years, and he doesn't like to make me date him like that when I say things. Say
been
hi,
doing this
Russell.
work longer than Josh has been around. So
I am 35 years old. So you have been groundwater sampling since I was in the womb.
Yep.
All right, now you're dating me. So what we like to do here on Wednesdays, we like to bring on experts from the industry. We like to talk about the industry, and we like to talk about our app. We like to give you tips, tricks on how to use the app for new users and potential users. And today we have a special one for you. First off, let me say, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat. Even after this episode's over, we get to these comments. If you put them in while we're live, we'll get to them while we're live. And if you know anybody you think this would be helpful to, give this link, send over to them as well, and like and share all the stuff. We have a special one for you today, though. It's a really special one. This is a culmination of a 10-month project that we've been working on. And we have David Weber, PG project manager from Antea Group USA. I'm going to bring him on here. Say hi, David.
Hi, everyone.
So we've been working with Antea for a while now, and we've been working on this new sampling program for them. It's a statewide drinking water sampling program, a very large program. It's got over 30 samplers. We're doing over thousands of samples a week at hundreds of locations. And we've been putting together this customized platform for them. It's very similar to the free application that we have, Sample ENV, for collecting data. This has a lot of customizations and some specialized tools that Antea needed in this platform.
Yeah,
so
it's specifically tailored for drinking water. So
yes. So we're just going to have a little bit of conversation with David about some of the the challenges that they originally had, some of the solutions they were looking for, and how everything came together, and how it's working today. So Dave, we wanted to ask you first off, what are the main challenges that you encountered in this large sampling, this large scale drinking water sampling program that you were dealing with?
Yeah, so this is an ongoing contract. We've won multiple times over 15 years of work with a specific state. We had developed originally a digital collection platform to assist the samplers in the field, and this is compliance related task. That's what Antea Group is in charge of, is ensuring on the state's behalf that these public water supply systems are being sampled correctly, consistently, and ensuring that the public is safe from all of these other potential analytes. And so we're in charge of just making sure that all goes well. And so we developed a digital platform. We call it digital, but it's it's not Microsoft Access database. We were using at the time hardware in the field to accomplish this task. But fast forward 15 years, and things were starting to become obsolete. And some of the original architects of that system, had long left the company. And so, as we went through the years, we were continuing to have to address issues that came up with the system that was in place and the reporting that was in place. We started getting into situations where the hardware was becoming obsolete. And so we started kind of doing our own in-shop repairs to make sure that we could get these out to these third-party contracted samplers to make sure that they can continue to do the work. As you said, with how many samples they get done, it's a freight train. It's always moving. There's a huge momentum behind it. And so kind of continually making sure that that machine stays oiled and the work can continue for that compliance piece. So our company, really kind of took a look at the work we had. And really started to see what we needed to do to update the system, right? And kind of future-proof it to some degree, but get really caught up on the status of the new technology. And so we had some inefficiencies. We had a lot of Band-Aids that were being put on these access database reports, and then some of the other processes that were in place. And so we kind of had to take a hard look at what steps we needed to take, what the future would look like. How do we continue to provide for this client on a high level, but then also make sure that the system, the process continues, and we don't have any interruptions, right? And so that was really kind of where this all started from, was longstanding client relationship contract. We were producing the work, but how can we do it better, and how do we upgrade that?
Yeah, I know that with a project this large, there's a lot of communication that needs to happen between, PMs, samplers, the state. There's a lot of database information that needs to get transferred back and forth. And so I know that you guys had a system set up beforehand, and then you guys revamped your entire database for this, and it felt like a large feat. And we were just talking about this before this started. And now that we're here, does it feel like you're going to need to change anything in the future at all? Like you feel like this is kind of how it's going to be for the next, 10, 20 years or something like that?
The intention was to make the same deliverables, the same expectations of the contract, make sure that we're checking all the boxes. Mm-hmm. And that's what's been accomplished, right? We've essentially replicated, with a lot of improvement, we've replicated what the existing process was. But we have every intention of setting this up moving forward. And that was a big reason that we made the decisions we made, as far as, bringing things into the cloud, doing some API integrations, having you guys work with us on this custom map development piece, is to get everything up to that base level. But then with the new platforms, with the new technology, be able to actually go further beyond with additional improvements, additional efficiencies. We can integrate some automations into the system that, in the old system weren't possible. And so, this initial push was, okay, let's complete what we need to do and what we're contractually obligated to do, and to meet the compliance needs of the state. But let's do it in a forward-thinking manner, to where we can ensure that we can continue to improve on this process, and bolt on additional integrations as things progress. And I know there are other pieces that are going to be bolted on, either now in testing or in the near future. Talk about PFAS, is a big topic nowadays. So being able to kind of take a lot of those new add-ons and be able to integrate them fairly seamlessly into the platform that we built.
Well, and one of those is, there's several laboratories involved in this project, and one of those bolt-on pieces that hasn't yet been implemented, but will be hopefully shortly, is having the labs actually be able to receive that data digitally as well. Yep. So, yeah, I think that's I don't know what caused you guys to make that decision, but that we had that element that would streamline not just your work in the field and all the people that are managing the data, but also even make it simpler on the laboratories eventually.
Yeah, and this is a very specific concern with drinking water, right? In my normal environmental sampling, yes, it's important to understand the data you get to make decisions, possibly immediately, based on what risk there is to the population or to the environment. For drinking water, especially, there's a very fast turnaround, right? So these are public water systems that get sampled. That sample gets collected, gets shipped to the lab, and then there's a very immediate need to understand not only the field screening parameters that come in from that public water system, but that has to be communicated directly to the lab on a quick turn, so that the lab can then react. Well, the lab can react with us, and then we can immediately go back out and order resampling. Sometimes these are high priority resamples. We'll be asked to go back out in a very short turn from the state to go recollect that sample. So sometimes more than others, this is a very important piece to the drinking water, is having that lab integration, to have that direct communication, so that action can become quick because of the circumstances of the public water system. So I think it puts an even finer point on that lab integration piece.
Yeah.
So I know that before you decided, what you needed to decide, like all your requirements on sampling in the field. and you were doing, a little bit of an audit of, what are requirements, and you landed on us, SampleServe. And can you just go over a little bit on, what made you look for us, and what stood out with SampleServe that we had the things that you needed, and you knew that we could, also.
Sure. Yeah. So there's kind of two parts to this solution, for this client. One significant piece, and the one that SampleServe is involved in, is that data field piece, that, field collection occurring in, remote offline areas, and some other kind of specifics to that. We can kind of talk about that here in a second. But so there's that field component piece, the data collection piece, but then there's also the back end piece, and all the additional processes that we as Antea Group have to, provide, and process that data to do that compliance piece. There's a lot of additional tracking that goes into what we are contractually obligated to do to cover the work. And it's not quite in SampleServe's purview to go into that detail on those compliance pieces. So we knew that we needed somebody who could help us and collaborate with us on a field portion and be the experts on that. But then also have some flexibility to work with us on the back end pieces and open some stuff up that maybe they wouldn't have opened up under other normal situations. The other pieces that were really important in our selection process, because we spent a lot of time thinking through it, was understanding what our real need was on the field side. And for the state drinking water sampling that occurs, we as Antea Group work with third-party contractors. These are companies that specifically do this type of work. And so that comes with a varying level of backgrounds and experience and skill set. So one of the things that we identified early on is that we needed an application that made sense, that was intuitive, that was easy to take on. And that's really ultimately what had us kind of land on SampleServe. We considered multiple scenarios where we go to an application developer, tell them the exact recipe of what we need, and that would have taken a lot of time. That would have taken a lot of obstacles as far as terminology and for an industry, understanding the intricacies of what sampling is, the chain of custodies, and all that process. So that was one scenario we kind of thought through. Another scenario was there's a lot of companies that offer, digital data collection in the field. Most of those people that we've worked with or talked to, maybe it was something they did for an unrelated industry, and then probably figured out through marketing that, hey, we could actually just go rename some of these fields and collect the same text and the same numerical values, and then we can spit it out however you want to see it on the back end. And those would have been fast, pretty turnkey systems, but the process, the flow didn't make sense. It wasn't intuitive. It was very clearly developed for a different industry and then just kind of reorganized in a different way. And while, that maybe would have checked some boxes, I think we would have had a lot more struggle on intuitiveness and the ease of uptake for the sampler and understanding that process. And so SampleServe was kind of the middle ground, right? It was coming from industry knowledge and background. The SampleServe, the base application, it makes sense, from groundwater sampling. It comes from people who have done this, right? Talking about Russell's been doing it for 35 years. I mean, Russell's gone out and sampled wells. He understands that workflow process. He understands the order that things make sense to go in when you're in the field. And so that highlights that user experience level that we really wanted to start with. And really it just came down to a matter of, well, this isn't going to match or fit the need for the drinking water. It's close, but it's going to take some customization. Is SampleServe willing to work with us? And of course, what does that look like timing wise and capability wise? So that was ultimately what made us land on SampleServe. It really comes down to understanding the industry, understanding the sampling process, environmental sampling process, and then the ability and flexibility to work with Antea Group to address those specific needs on the drinking water piece.
Right. And you really highlighted that build versus buy dilemma that has been going on with a lot of consulting firms lately. the option of building your own always stands out first, because companies can always customize it to exactly their needs. They know what they need, and they would like to see exactly what they want. But then they realize afterwards, they say, I'm not a software developing company. We're
Right.
not in the business of developing software. And then it becomes a time sink and a money sink, where you want to use it because you put money into it, and then it doesn't work. So the buy option is always out there, especially with SampleServe, because we're 90% the way there for most media.
Yeah.
Drinking water, we're 100% the way there now. Groundwater, we've always been there. Soil, we're there, and so the media just keeps expanding, and it's nice to have that option, especially when it's built for environmental and sampling at any media, as opposed to form builders. Like you mentioned, there's other companies out there that have forms. It's easy to make a form, but what do you do with that information really counts. How does the information flow from document to document digitally, from user to user, really matters.
And I think another big differentiator is every other application out there doesn't really bring the lab into the mix, right? They don't really go, okay, how does the lab want this, and how are they going to receive the data? So, I think that, and it's just because I've been in probably half the labs in the country, dropping off samples, because we've sampled all over the country. So I think just that experience alone has kind of made me always think of, like, how does the lab do it? And whenever I would drop samples off, because I've been at this game for a long time, I would ask them, like, walk me through, like, what do you do with this after, I drop them off? And a lot of them were real nice and would just show me around, and, like, okay, here's where we enter the data. Here's where the sample goes afterwards. So, so I kind of learned, like, all right, this is actually a big part of the process.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So let's keep going here. We're running. We're taking a while. It's okay though. So David, describe some of the key features that we've been able to implement for you. Some stuff that we didn't necessarily have to begin with, or something specific that maybe we did have that you needed that was very specific that only SampleServe had.
Yeah, drinking water, in particular this state, I think every state's probably going to have its own variation of things like this. There's a big state driven component, and for us it's the scheduling. The state kind of sets what systems need to be sampled, how they need to be sampled, when they need to be sampled. And so there's a bit of there's two-way communication that has to occur, and it's not just, okay, here's your list, go do it, and tell us when you're done. It's constantly changing and evolving. In fact, we get monthly updates on this particular one, and so there's a bunch of adjustments that had to be made on how to balance those two schedules from occurring, using SampleServe's PM tool. Not only do we want the samplers in their companies to be able to go in and set the scheduling based on the criteria the state's laid out, but then we also have to account for changes in that, updates in that, going out to a system that's all of a sudden down for one reason or another. And so we had to work with SampleServe on quite a few things, on to understanding how to manage those just very specific scenarios that can kind of put a wrench in the works.
Right.
And there was a host of those, right? And we were able to get through all of those. Another unique requirement on this is that there's an in-field printer, not just a sample label printer, but a full format printer. There's an official document that gets handed over, right? So there's a signature that's taken at that time. There's the sampling information that gets collected at that time. And being able to develop an offline report printing functionality that's not just the sample labels, but this report was a huge piece. And it's an absolute requirement that we can't do the work without having that official document done. So I would say those are probably the two big standout kind of custom features. And then certainly the API integration is a huge one. Is a lengthy topic. Yeah.
And after implementation, SampleServe, we made sure we created a large training library, short videos to get everybody on board for the small things that they need to learn when they need to learn it. If you want to learn how to connect a printer, there's a short video for that. If you want to learn how to log in or, start a sampling event, we got small videos for that. How was the training process and how was getting people on board for you?
Training wasn't bad. And that really goes back to, I think, the user experience, the intuitiveness of the platform, right? If you make your platform intuitive and you make things make sense, then the training's minimal. And, we had, those initial kickoff calls with kind of the PM group, if you will, and then the sampler group, focused on the PM tool and then focused on the sample application tool. That went really well. Feedback's been great. Everybody's resistant to change. Change is hard. We kind of changed their process a bit. But the feedback we've gotten recently is they're really seeing that this is huge. This is a huge benefit in a lot of ways, and it's starting to save them time. And they're starting to see the other pieces that just make their job easier. And that's really what the samplers are interested in, right? Is how do I complete my job to the best of my capacity and ability, but do it in an even faster, more efficient manner. And that's been well received.
Yeah, I field a lot of customer support calls, and and we've had some customer support issues with some of the people out there sampling, and but all in all, when they're very candid with me, they're like, "Hey, this is great." They'll little bug here, a little problem there, but all in all, they actually end up going like, "I really like this. This is a great product." So, which is great, for me to hear, because we got a lot of time and effort invested in this product. So it's always good to hear that good feedback.
Yeah.
It's the people in the field that like us the most. That's
yeah.
Generally what we've come down to. We all agree with the field samplers. They love us.
Yep.
They're our biggest fans.
So last question here. Do you see a potential to expand this type of program to more areas, more like another state or another, government or type of sampling program?
Yeah. Yeah. Antea Group itself, we're rolling out SampleServe EMV in the company. And so, ourselves as a consultancy will be taking on more SampleServe solution generically across all of our, monitoring needs. But yeah, I think every state's going to be different. I think what we proved through this rollout is that we can work with that. SampleServe can work with that. And so while I don't necessarily think that this could just get, relabeled and shipped out to other states, there's going to be specifics to those states. But I think a lot of the framework is there. The knowledge that we gained through this process is now there. And so I think, absolutely. At the next opportunity, Antea would, I think, go and pursue other options in other states to help them, not only with our track record of serving this state for so many years successfully, but also now with this modern platform that has a lot of potential to be further enhanced. I think absolutely we'll be considering those other options.
And this program was kind of built to conform to an older system that was built a long time ago with different workflows and like catered to a different idea of how everything's set up. I think for states that don't have necessarily anything set up yet but are thinking about setting something up, it would be a lot faster and a lot easier to start from scratch and build it from the ground up on something that's around the idea of what we're doing for this state. And getting a fresh start, digitally with that in your mind, new type of database, new type of sampling workflow, new type of integration with the labs, field samplers, project managers. I think it would be a lot easier and a lot more efficient too.
Oh yeah. There's certainly points where, we really had to understand what is required, what is something you've just been doing for the last 15 years and maybe isn't an actual requirement, it's just what we've been taught. To really understand and just try to trim out the fat, if you will, of what's not really adding to the process. And
Yeah.
what might be taking away from that process.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a perfect world, we would have a seat at both sides of the table. But in the interest of this state, it didn't take any changes on their end, but they reap all the reward, right? So it's a good win-win for them. It certainly made us jump through some additional hoops, but we got there, and it worked. So all in all, it was a great solution.
Perfect. Well, we're well past our 20-minute mark, so I think we're gonna end it here. Thank you very much, Dave, for coming on.
We
probably
really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
We'll have you on again in the future. Maybe the next time we'll be talking about the next state. Or,
Right. Sounds good.
And I know you're rolling out Sample ENV company wide, and that's that's an ongoing process. And we're curious to see what your experience is in the future with not just drinking water, but with all kinds of media that you're going to be using SampleServe for. So I'd like to thank everybody for watching this. Make sure you give this a share to anybody you think this would be helpful to. And thank you, Russell. Thank you, David. And we're off. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.